Hey guys, and welcome on into another NHL season preview show. And today we're going to be talking all about the St. Louis Blues, looking at their offseason moves, additions and subtractions, coming free agents, possible lineup, as well as team and player future bets. So, a lot to go over here today. And to do that with me, not officially a St. Louis Blues fan, but somebody who, over the past few seasons, has been able to see the good things in the St. Louis Blues. Nick, I know you've bet on the Blues a lot, and I know they've made you money in the last few years. Um, Tell people a little bit that have not seen you before. Give them a brief introduction of yourself.
Yeah. My name is Nick Earle, Earle Sports Bets. Follow me on YouTube there. We do a show every single morning. And ready to talk some hockey. And yeah, the Blues, even though they've not been the greatest the last couple of years, I've found ways to make money with them, and they've been a fun team for me. And I guess in my eyes, they're my adopted Western Conference team. So they've made me the most money over the last few years because I've been able to read them right. So I like this team a little bit.
All right, perfect. We're going to jump right into it here and start with the first segment, additions and subtractions. I'll start first with this one. Nick can go second. We'll switch it up as we go through the different segments here. Uh, as I usually do, I start with the subtractions. And you're looking at the guys here on this list. And really, I don't think Blues fans are going to lose sleep over really anybody on this list. I think the main guy that left is head coach Craig Berube. I have his picture down there heading to Toronto. I We'll get to the Toronto show in the next week or so, but I like that addition for Toronto uh, with Craig Berube. I think he's exactly what the Leafs need. We'll touch on that another day. So overall, when you look at subtractions, a lot of those guys are depth guys. And then when you look at the additions here, as you can see with the trades, the Blues have been busy doing some trades. And then we saw some offer sheets as well. So the Blues have actually been pretty busy here in this offseason. Alexandra Texier is a good depth forward. Matthew Joseph, another good depth forward, gives them some edge. Radek Faksa, another guy that can give them some edge there in the bottom six. Pierre Oliver Joseph, some defensive depth. Ryan Suter, after getting bought out for the second time in his career by the Dallas Stars, St. Louis went quickly and snatched him up. So we'll see exactly how that goes for their locker room and for their defense this year. Then you've got the good moves here. Dylan Holloway, Philip Broberg. I really like Dylan Holloway. I think he's got a ton of talent, a ton of potential. I really like that addition for the Blues. And then Philip Broberg, which is actually a very good signing because right after the offer sheet, a few days actually before we record the show, Torrey Krug will be out the entire season for the
Mm.
St. Louis Blues. So that is a big loss to their defense this year. Um, Nick, what do you think here about the additions and subtractions for the Blues?
Yeah, I mean, Blues are probably gonna definitely lose sleep over Marco Scandella and Jacob Verana. Um, I mean, they're mostly like depth guys and AHL guys that were cut off. Craig Berube, that was a midseason thing. He was fired midseason, and they went on a little bit of a run after that, and then they cooled off at the end. So that's not as new. I want to see what this Blues team looks like under a full training camp of Drew Bannister, and not just him taking over midseason. I think I like the Broberg and Holloway additions, and taking them away from Edmonton. We saw them play a little bit of a role with that Oilers team on the way to the Stanley Cup last season. I think that we can see potentially them look at decent in a depth role here for the Blues. Texier could be a nice little forward addition. Matthew Joseph is probably just going to be like a fourth liner. Same with Fasca, maybe a third liner there. It was just mainly just depth pieces I see really them moving around because they actually have a decent core when you look at it with Kyrou and with Neighbors and with Buchnevich. They have a decent core of top six forwards. They just need to more address depth. So I kind of like the way they did address the depth here. I think that this is a team that could probably be a little bit of a sneaky dog, but they just, it was more like a depth type of additions for them I see here.
I agree with that. And then with the head coach, I put all the teams that have a new head
Mhm.
coach, even if it kind of happened during the season, just because it's the team's first full season. So still putting in the head coach additions and subtractions here in the off season. We have quite a few teams that changed coaches uh, last year and in the off season. Looking at upcoming free agents, some teams have some big lists, other teams have smaller lists here, and the Blues are kind of on the smaller side of things here. Nick, I'll let you go first here for this one. Upcoming free agents, who do you think the Blues should be focusing most on re-signing, and who do you think they should probably let go in the offseason?
Yeah, I think it starts and ends with Ryan Suter. He is your future. And I'm just kidding. No, it's Jake Neighbors. We saw him kind of burst onto the scene a little bit last year. I think it's Jake Neighbors, and that's your number one priority. If you're the Blues, you need to lock him down like you have with Kyrou and a little bit with, I believe, Buchnevich as well. You need to get him signed to a few-year contract and get that out of the way. Joel Hofer as well. He's a restricted free agent, so I don't think it's not as not saying as important, but he's somebody who you're going to need to address a little bit. I kind of like that 1-2 tandem with Binnington Hofer. I think Hofer could be somebody with a decent defense in front of him that could be a pretty decent backup or a 1B type of goaltender. So I think that he's somebody that they need to sign as well. So for me, it'd be Neighbors and it'd be Hofer.
Awesome. And yeah, even though they are RFAs, you do have to look at what the St. Louis Blues did. And that is sign two guys to offer sheets. And we might see some other general managers in the NHL not too happy with that. Take a look
Yeah.
at Jake Neighbors and say, hey, we'd love to have Jake Neighbors on our team. Or there could be situations here now that St. Louis has opened up that box. You can't
Mhm.
shut that box. So we'll see what happens there. I agree. That's why those guys' pictures are on the screen. Jake Neighbors, the most important guy on this list. The Blues have to get him re-signed for their future. Um, Great anytime goal scorer last season. A ton of money made on Jake Neighbors. Ryan Suter, I cannot really see St. Louis re-signing Ryan Suter. I think he's most likely headed to retirement after this season. Um, but we'll see what happens there. Couple RFA defensemen as well, most likely get those guys signed. And then how Joel Hofer does this season will be a big um, indicator on what the Blues do with their goaltending going forward. Next up is possible lineup. Taking a look at what the possible lineup could look like here. And if I had filmed this a week ago, the defense core looked really good with Torrey Krug in there, but now he's gone, which is a big loss. Out for the season after a season-ending surgery, so he won't be playing this year. If you look at the Blues defense pairs, though, that's where they have some strength. Is in the defense. Nick Leddy, Colton Parayko, good top pair there. Philip Broberg is going to really get an opportunity here in St. Louis, especially now with the Krug injury, projected to play with Justin Falk. And then I can see Pierre Oliver Joseph coming in sometimes for Ryan Suter, Scott Prunovich. I could see guys mixing in with there, but the Blues are going to be happy now that they've signed extra guys, extra defensemen in the offseason now with the Torrey Krug injury. Goaltenders are the same from last year. Nothing's really changed there. When you look at the offense, those top two lines, Neighbors, Thomas, and Kyrou, that's where most of the offense is going to come from the Blues. But they really need that second line. Sad, Buchnevich, and Braden Shen. They really need that second line to perform if they're going to have any chance at any kind of mix of the playoffs or anything like that. Because when you look at their bottom two lines, the offense is just not there. Now we might see some surprises here with some of these guys, But overall, compared to what some other teams have, especially in this division, the Blues forward group needs some work when you look at the bottom two lines. Now, they do have some physical guys. Dylan Holloway, not projected to play, but he's an offensive guy. I'd like to see him on the third line for the Blues at some point. They're not going to be pushovers, but looking at the offense, if that second line struggles at all, the Blues are going to have a very rough season, in my opinion. Nick, what do you think here about this possible lineup for the Blues?
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate that second line. And as I mentioned with the additions that they made, it was more for depth, which when you it makes sense because when you look at the top six overall, I mean, you could do a lot worse than Neighbors, Thomas, Kyrou, Shen, Buchnevich, and Saad. Like you can do a whole lot worse than those top six when you look at forwards there. I want to see Pierre Oliver Joseph play more games than Ryan Suter this year if I'm a Blues fan in order for them to have more success. Granted, Suter's probably only going to play like 10 or 11, 12 minutes a game on that third pairing with Paranovich. Leddy has got to step up on that power play, and I think he can. I remember him on the power play with New York years ago. Looked decent and with those teams that made the semifinal runs. I think Dylan Holloway cracks the lineup some way, shape, or form by the end of training camp. I don't know where, but I think he makes it into the lineup. Whether that's Matthew Joseph coming out or something along those lines, I see him cracking the lineup somehow. I think I don't hate that top line with Leddy and Parayko as well for defense pairing. I think you can do a lot worse than that. This team is not going to be the top of the line team, but they're not going to be a San Jose Sharks or a Chicago Blackhawks of last year either. They're going to be an average team. They'll be a mediocre team, and this lineup, unless they get a decent amount from their depth. But I don't mind the top six. You can do a lot worse, but you can do a lot better.
Yeah, I don't have anything against the top six. I'm just saying that second line, which was great last year.
Yeah.
Saad was a great goal scorer. Braden Shen, Buchnevich for sure. But if they struggle at all, then that's what I'm saying is that's when the Blues will have issues
Oh
because
yeah.
the
Mm-hmm.
scoring depth isn't there. So they really need that second line to perform and that top line for the Blues to have a good season, in my opinion. Looking at team future bets here. Of course, we're doing the same ones, the same bets here for every team. Looking at Stanley Cup, conference winner, President's Trophy, division winner. Unfortunately for the Blues, they're not one of the teams that I would look at for any of those bets. Make playoffs. The plus 205 is attractive. But the issue is that there are a lot of teams in the Western Conference and a lot of teams in the Central Division that improved. Um, Minnesota, maybe not a team that improved, but they're getting Jared Spurgeon back from injury, who was gone most of last season. That's a huge defensive piece, the captain of the team. We saw what Nashville did in the offseason. Dallas is still there. Colorado should be getting reinforcements with Landeskog, I'm hearing, by around November. And then the Shushkin will be later on after that. So, and then Chicago, as Nick said, Chicago added a lot of pieces in the offseason. Whether that makes them drastically better or not, that's to be determined. But the St. Louis Blues team making the playoffs, I don't see it, and that's why I think it's priced the way it is here. Looking at the point total for the Blues, they had 92 points last year, and now they're looking at around 86 and a half here in this division. Um, I don't have a play on the under, but I want to take the over either because I do think this Blues team is going to take a step back overall just because of how the West has improved. I like a team like Seattle more than I like the Blues. Teams in the Pacific as well. So when it comes to this here, there's no plays for me here. Least points in the NHL is plus 3,000 for the Blues. Um, I like that number, but I don't know if the Blues finish last. Like Nick said, And I agree. They do have a great top six. They do have good defensemen. It would take a horrible season from the goaltending and an injury riddled season for the Blues to kind of compete for last. So, really, when it comes to team future bets here, I've got nothing on the Blues. They're not really one of the teams I'm looking at for future bets this season. Nick, does anything here catch your eye? What are your opinions here on these plays?
Yeah, the Blues are just a big question mark for me this year because when I look at the standing or when I look at the Central Division, I like the Stars over them. I like the Jets over them. I like the Avalanche over them. Kind of like the Preds over them. Utah is going to be interesting, and I like the Minnesota Wild to finish with more points than the St. Louis Blues a little bit this year. I think that's very telling that they finished 5 points above the Wild, but the Wild are minus 130 to make the playoffs, and the Blues are plus 205. I think this line's telling us everything we need to know. I think it's an under or nothing kind of thing because when I went back and looked at the points and stuff like that. Last year, the Blues were an 86.5 as well. They went over that total with 92 points. And the bookmakers put him right back at 86.5 this year, telling them that this is probably a team that's where they expected them to be last year, which I could see them potentially overachieving them because we saw them as home dogs were like so good last year type of thing where they got undervalued a lot. I think there's more value in finding your spots as taking them as home dogs rather than taking a future on them because this is a huge wild card for me because they can finish seventh in the Central. They can finish third in the Central. I think there's a pretty wide range of outcomes here for the Blues this year where I don't know where to point them yet. But they're a team probably that they're bet on at home, maybe not as much on the road. But this is just a big question mark for me. I think this is an average hockey team with a large variance, depending on what they get from Binnington, what they get from those top two lines, what the depth looks like, what the defense core looks like. I think this is probably one of the wider range of outcomes for teams this year, in my opinion, is what the Blues can do.
And it's tough to do future bets on a team that has a wide range of. You want to be betting on a team that you're pretty sure where they're going to be, not where they're kind of all over the place. So
I can
I get
argue
that.
against that a little bit because if you're looking for a boom bust type of team, I mean, taking them to try to get a big score on a team that you think the ceiling could be super high, it's whether the risk is worth the reward type of thing. If you think that this team's ceiling is winning the division, 22-1's like, but I don't see that personally. But like, it depends on your when you're looking at teams with high variance, is what's your risk reward tolerance and things along those lines for them. Because yes, this team could be a playoff team. This team can also finish seventh in the Central. So we'll see.
I agree, but there is some good teams coming here in the future days that you
Mhm.
guys will be seeing that I like to be some underdogs. There are some underdogs that I like coming up
Yeah.
in the future, but looking at player future bets here for the Blues, I really don't see them being in the running for any awards when it comes to player awards. They're just unfortunately not that team. But looking at player future bets here, Jordan Kyrou last year, 31 goals, 67 points. The season before, 37 goals, 73 points. 27 goals, 75 points uh, the season before that. So Cairo has hit his point total in two of the last 3 years, not last year. He did have a down year last year. Um, 31 goals, 31 and a half. No plays there for me. Pavel Buchnevich last year, 27 goals, 26 the season before that, 30 and 21 22. 63 points last year, 67 the year before, 76 the season before that. So he's kind of going down when it comes to point production, Buchnevich. And then, of course, 22-23, he had 67 points in 63 games. So he had a very good season the year before last. Kind of went down a little bit last year. Robert Thomas is 25 and a half goals is his prop. He had 26 last year, 18 the season before that, 20 the season before that. So he has been much more of an assist guy. When you look at his points, it totals 80 and a half. He had 86 last year, 65 the season before that, 77 the season before that. So Thomas had a good year last year, and that's the way the books are pricing his numbers. Really no interest for me there either. And then when it comes to wins for Bennington, he had 28 last season, 27 the season before that, and then back-to-back years with 18 wins. So are the Blues going to look more at Joel Hofer to start more? Because if you think Bennington is going to get the majority of these starts, then maybe you want to look towards the over. But if the Blues are going to give Hofer more of a look this season, or Bennington struggles and they give Hofer more of a look, you want to look at the under. So really, I'm sorry, guys. When it comes to the Blues, there's no futures for me. I kind of agree with Nick. They're a team I'm more interested in looking at during the season, how I'm going to tackle betting them. But preseason, they're kind of a team that I'm kind of staying away from, to be honest. Nick, player future bets here. What do you think about these numbers on the screen? Do you think any players have a good season? What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, the only thing that I was really looking at, I mean, is Jay Binney. Jay Binney for Vesna at 25-1. This is I think actually when I was talking about last slide with like the ultimate boom bust type of players, if you think the boom for Bennington is high enough, 25-1 I think is worth a stab. Am I betting it? No, but that would be the only way I would be able to look anything like that. If I'm looking for player stuff, I'm looking for a score. And the only thing that ever even came close to interested to me was Bennington Vesna. But I think there's a couple other goalies I like better. But that would be the only way I'd look here.
All right. And well, that is it. That is the St. Louis preview show. A little bit of a shorter show here for the Blues, but it is what it is, unfortunately. They're just not a whole lot to really talk about with the Blues here, but they're an interesting team to see how they perform during the season. Maybe if they start to have a good season, maybe we do want to look at some of these bets. And then you can bet player props live during the season as well. So maybe if you see a player that is hot and you think he's going to keep it going, you can bet this live. So lots of different things you can do during the season. Nick, anything else you want to say about the Blues before we finish off the show?
No, that's just about it. It's just a confusing team to me personally, but maybe the first few weeks can kind of tell a story.
There we go. Everyone, go give Nick a follow. His Twitter link is in the description below. And then, of course, Earle Sports Bets on YouTube as well. Thank you everyone for watching, and we will see you guys on the next preview show. Thanks, guys.